For a midterm rental, property management is going to cost you half of the first month's rent. So whenever they secure a tenant, they're going to take half of the first full month's rent, and then they're going to charge you between 8 to 12% going forward. This is pretty much the standard for long-term rents, and we're seeing it get carried into midterm rentals as well. My name is Erin Spradlin. Welcome to my channel. On this channel, we talk about how to self-property manage. We're going to talk about whether or not self-property management is right for you. If it is not right for you, you can always hire a property manager if you're spinning your wheels. But up front, I think it's something where people should try and save themselves that 8 to 12% right off the bat, because I really don't find self-property management to be that hard. I've been doing it since 2017, and when I started, I had no experience either. I never saw myself as owning properties, much less being landlord, much less being one that does it myself. That said, I have a 92% occupancy rate since 2017, had one bad tenant. You hear about tenant nightmares. You're probably hearing about the most salacious, exciting stories because they're good stories. Taps into everybody's worst fear, but is it the reality of what it's like to actually have tenants? This video is going to take you through 10 questions. First section will be questions around hard things that you have managed. The second section will be around personality. The third section will be around tenants, and the fourth section will be about your property. We'll talk about the things that you have confidence to do. We want to talk about what suits you and what you like to do. Talk about tabloids versus reality with tenants. And then finally, we're going to discuss your property, because I know from my consulting clients, rejection if you think no one is going to hit your property. Everyone's going to hate your property. They're going to think it's ugly. I think that's probably not true, and I'll explain why in a bit. I hope there's merit in this test as far as taking you through who you are and whether or not self-property management makes sense for you. All right, question number one, hard things that you have accomplished. Let's start with 3 questions. These questions are going to seem awkward and discrediting at first, but just stick with me because I will explain how they are relevant to self-property management. So the first is, have you had kids? The second is, have you gone into a job that you hated every day for 6 months? And the third is, have you gone to grad school? And so my hope is that you have done one of those 3 things and that you can take the lesson from that and apply it to property management. So let's start with kids. When you have a kid, you don't vet that kid. You have no idea what you're going to get. You don't know how long that experience is going to last. People talk about it for 18 years, but I think a lot of parents will tell you the reality is much longer. And also when you have that kid demands all of your time and attention. And there's a lot of tasks around that. Getting the kid on a sleep cycle, getting the kid to eat, facilitating the relationship and the communication between yourself and the kid, maybe the spouse and your kid, grandparents, kid and their friends, etc. So it is a heavy duty job that requires a lot of responsibility, a lot of planning and coordinating, all encompassing. Now let's compare that to property management. And when we compare it to property management, with property management, you can vet the tenant. You can see what their background is, which is a great indicator of how they're going to act in the future. We can see how they communicate with us. We can do a credit and criminal background check on them. We have a fixed amount of time, so when they're going to come in and when they're going to leave. And they also don't require all of our time and attention. Really sourcing them takes a lot of time and attention. After that, you get your systems in place, and they really don't require much. So very different than with a child, and a lot less responsibility. So that's question number 1. If you feel like you're learning something, please like this video. Question number 2, have you had a job that you hated? I have had a job that I hated, and what I hated about that job was that I had no say in who my bosses were. I didn't have a ton of say / no say in who my clients were. Barely had any say in who my employees were. So there were a lot of pieces that I was responsible for that were out of my control. This is your situation, but I imagine it is the situation for a lot of people that are unhappy in their job. Again, we're not going to see that with property management, because you get to pick the property, you get to vet the tenants, you know when they're coming and going, you get to pick the platforms it's going to be on, we get to pick the way it's marketed, and tell them when you're going to get paid, how you're going to get paid, how much money you're going to get paid. You have a lot more control in this situation than you do with a job that you dislike. So if you've been dealing with a job that you dislike and dealing with all the stress and headaches that come with that, when you think through them, Property management will be a lot more satisfying because you'll have full control over those items. All right, and then question number, grad school. Have you been to grad school? I bring up grad school because I am a proud University of Denver alum. What grad school really comes down to is time management and also being able to distill your thoughts down into clear and concise sentences and communicating it to someone else. Good property management is also going to be that. You're going to get your systems. That's going to save you time. You're going to have to isolate certain blocks in your calendar and dedicate that toward putting your property up on platforms, going and checking out your property, talking to your tenants. And also, equally important is communicating to your tenants expectations as far as what you want out of them, how you want them to treat the property, when they'll come in, when they'll leave. Taking these skills and moving them to property management. It's not important that you have done all three of these things, but if you can fathom doing one of these things or you have done one of these things, take those lessons and apply them to property management, because hopefully it will help us have some confidence that we can actually do property management. The reason why I put in questions here around your personality is because I think we need to talk about what you like to do, who you are, what suits you before you ever get into a real estate investment or before you pursue a certain type of real estate investment. And question 4 is, do you like to learn new things? I think we talk about real estate too much as a one size fits all. And also we talk about real estate like money just to make money, instead of backing into it and saying, do I need the real estate to do to support my life? Properties do I need to have to facilitate the lifestyle that I want? That's not necessarily 10 properties. In my opinion, it's probably closer to 4 to 6. So I have no desire to tack on extra properties just to tack on extra properties. Do you like to do new things? Do you like to learn new skill sets? I know this sounds like a loaded question, because who's going to be like, no, I hate new information. New information is gross. I don't think anyone necessarily wants to say that, but nevertheless, you might be really taxed. You might have a very stressful full-time job. You might have kids at home. I just have life circumstances that don't make it available for you or for it to be appealing to you. Totally fine. No shame on that. Just be honest with yourself. If you have time and the interest to learn new information, then it's very exciting, because you're talking about launching your first business and taking a fairly tried and true method, baby steps into having your first investment. You're going to learn a lot around how to run Excel and Google Sheets. You're going to learn a lot about how to use the platform. So how to be on Airbnb, Zillow, Furnish Finders. You're going to learn how to vet and background check your tenants depending on which platform you're on. You are going to learn how to collect rent. You're going to learn what the tenants continue to talk about as a problem or a plus of your property, and you're going to start to integrate that. If you are nervous about the steep learning curve with becoming your own self-property manager, I offer consulting in different hours for this. It's just what I would have wanted. I wanted somebody to hold my hand and tell me all the information through the first rental, and then I could do it on my own to help me in the first place. I didn't have that, and so I think we probably lost some money up front, but this is the package I offer. You can email me. My email is on the screen if you have questions about that, or you can check out the packages I have to offer at the Stand store, and I will link to that in the description. Okay, so next personality question is can I get the grammar right here? The next personality question is your life chaotic? Are you disorganized? I recognize that that sounds like a judgmental question, and perhaps it is, but it's not meant to be a judgmental question. We all have strengths in different areas, but just having an awareness about it. If you are a person that can tackle a to-do list, loves the to-do list, loves the Container Store, loves label makers, then property management will absolutely be a breeze for you. If you are a person that loses your keys a lot or misses appointments, property management is maybe not it for you, because there's a lot of money on the line, and also there are other people depending on you and depending on you in a serious way. Honest with yourself, and then work around your strengths and weaknesses depending on what they are. If you are looking for more content on property management, self-property management, and the midterm space, either of those topics, please subscribe. You will then get a notification every time new videos come out. Okay, next question. Do you like time more or do you like money more? I am very clear on the fact that I like time more, and I'm a lazy investor, meaning I want to set up everything that I can to make the process as frictionless and easy for me as possible. This is also a big reason why I like midterm renters, is because midterm renters come in, they pay an elevated rent, you don't hear from them a lot, they tend to be a little bit further in their careers, because you're going to think, well, if you like time more, shouldn't you pay for property management? That is true in theory. It's true if the property management does a good job, and I have never hired property management myself, but with a lot of my consultant clients, people have been very unhappy with their property management. So it has felt like an extra job to them. So they have had to manage the people that were supposed to be managing their properties. They felt like they let in tenants that they wouldn't have let in. And they also complain often that the place stays vacant. So I am very focused on my time. I just don't happen to believe that property management will give me back a lot of my time. Platforms now are pretty self-explanatory. You can kind of work through them. The tenants pay for the background and credit check. The landlord doesn't. And then if you put a smart lock on your door, you can always manage who's coming and going, including tenants, cleaners, handymen, etc. I can take care of that stuff pretty efficiently and save myself 8 to 12% and not have an additional job of managing the property management. The questions around personality. Now let's get to section 3, which is about tenants. The reason why I want to talk about tenants is because we have only had one bad tenant since 2017, and those tenants cost me $3,000 after I corrected with the deposit. Do not take your deposit lightly. I know people in the midterm space are saying, charge only $500 for a deposit. That is terrible advice. You should take a big deposit because you're not only protecting the walls, you're protecting the furniture around you, and all of that needs to be covered. And it is not easy to get it out of your insurance. And it's also not easy to pursue a tenant that is left. It is easier to get it off of Airbnb, but even that you're negotiating with someone else to be corrected. Whereas if you have their deposit, you can just fix it that way. Adjust our attitudes around tenants in the United States. 34% of people in the US rent. So that's a lot of people. Also, there are friends, there are neighbors, there are also who pays our mortgages. So they deserve a level of respect for that I don't think they always get. All these tenant nightmare stories on the news. It isn't to say that that never happens, but that there is an over focus on those stories versus the stories about tenants that just come in, pay their bills, and then leave. We need more stories about that. It's just that those are boring stories. Were you a tenant? Were you a bad tenant? Have your friends been tenants? Were they bad tenants? And do you know anyone personally that has had bad tenants? What happened to them? How much money were they out? How big of an issue it was? And then play the tape forward on what would happen if you got a bad tenant. What would that look like? How long would it take to fix it? Who would you call? You should also know how to make a claim with your insurance and talk to your insurance about what they'll cover in different situations. So for instance, do you cover pet urine? Do you cover it when a tenant damages the place, but they've stayed for 30 days or more and the property is mine? By the way, if you want a checklist for this, I have one on StanStore. It's a checklist that you ask your insurance, because I have found a lot of gaps for insurance in the midterm rental market. You're not dealing in unknown fears, you're dealing in real fears and addressing them. That is very important in real estate. Question number 10, the question that I think a lot of people are most worried about has to do with, will anyone rent your property? This is my question for you. Would you rent your property? Because if you would rent your property, there's a good chance someone like you will rent your property. Actually, your tenant may be a lot like you. Your tenant might be someone that you would be friends with or that you are friends with. Not necessarily something you're doing intentionally. It's just the way you're marketing your property. It actually happens to attract people that are very similar to you. It's down more to how you market the property and your pricing than it does if the place is rentable or not. You just need to make some tweaks until you start to get interest. If you are looking for books on self-property management and or midterm rentals, I have written 3. They are available on Amazon. You just need to search Erin Spradlin and they will come right up. I have convinced you to self-property manage and save yourself some money. If you want more videos on this topic, I recommend this one and this